Baltimore, Baltimore. Bitch, I'm reppin' Baltimore. Young street nigga, dope boy. I come from Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore. Young niggas be shining on them dirt bikes. We be wildin', selling scramble out the houses. About to hit the block, you know it's trapping time. Gotta watch what I say, cause they might tap the line.
Welcome back for another episode of Keep It G Podcast. I'm Keep It G Blogger. I got a co-host from me. Her name is Bea. She's a podcaster herself, and I'm gonna let her introduce what she do.
What's good? My name is Bea. My podcast is called Champagne Mornings, and you guys should definitely check it out when you get the chance. But I'm here to rock with him today.
Right. So look, right. It's been the news. We had the untimely death of Kevin Samuels, influencer, self-proclaimed special. What do he call himself? Image consultant. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, image consultant, high key influencer, because he went crazy and he definitely started and kept a lot of conversations going.
Kept a lot of conversations going, man, and it just been so much being said about is he good for the culture? Would he be missed? And it's a serious divide.
Mm-hmm.
So I see him as someone that was important to the culture, but I got my own personal feelings. But what I want to understand is, Bea, how do you feel about Kevin Samuels?
This is the thing about Kevin Samuels. He was a dynamic dude. Like, he knew what he stood for. He knew what he wanted to talk about. And he did just that, like, regardless of what anybody had to say about it. And I also feel like if you find your niche, like a lot of people, it's a hard time for them to find the lane that they should travel in. But when you find it, like, ride that out. Make your money. I had no problems with him.
And I think what we seen was one of the fastest rises to stardom probably ever. I know he has been doing this thing, I think, for about 5 years now. But within this year and a half time frame, he just straight took off.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And it was was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
But the question remains is, because I think this is what people are struggling with. Was his message needed? And did he go about it the right way?
I mean, there's no wrong way to be you, right? Like, you can't tell somebody how to go into the lane that they go into. And obviously he got where he wanted to be, which seemed like he was real comfortable with where he was at. So I can't say there's a wrong way to do it. Was it needed? To the right people, it was. To the right people, to his audience, it was needed. That's why they're there. Mm-hmm. If you take something personally, then, that's when you get into the emotions of it, and you might not need that energy. You might need to push that away,
Right. So how familiar was you with his content? Because a lot of people watched clips, and then you have some people that actually watch the whole episodes.
I've never watched the whole episode of his show. I never seen anything alluring enough to make me want to. I definitely, as a podcaster, and as an influencer, anybody in social media like that, like, you keep an eye out for a lot of things, So I've watched clips here and there. I've watched long clips here and there. And he was controversial. I mean, we know that he got on the women's heads, right? This is what you need to be. This is what you should be. Mm-hmm. And anytime you're telling somebody what they can and should and what they not, yeah, you're going to get some pushback. Yeah, you're going to get some fight. How you going to tell me? You don't know me. You know what I mean? He don't know you. Why are you taking it personal? There's probably a reason why too. So, but yeah, no, I'm very familiar with his content.
So from what you gathered, overall, do you think it was positive?
I think it was at times positive, at times purposely malicious. I think that he presented things because he was a very well-spoken person. And he wasn't always bringing the same type of energy, if that makes sense. Like, I think he knew when he needed to rise in certain engagements, and he rose to that, you know. And if there's a topic that is getting a buzz, yeah, he's stuck to it, and he expounded on it, and he let them know, like, yeah, this is what it is. I think he said some positive things, though, to be honest. I think that he said a lot of things about self-improvement for females and males.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, he got his main character, so to say, definitely got on the females a lot, but there was some things that he said on the male side too that they didn't always want to hear. They just,
And
pass over it.
that get lost because a lot of times, like especially now, when people talk about him, it's all about how he talked to the females. But people don't realize that he talked to the males the same way. So it wasn't like he was picking on anybody. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know if the same way, or maybe it's the receptive end of it, how the females seen it. You know what I mean? Because honestly, you don't have nobody who's just going to come out and talk against the females, right? It's not a big thing. So that was new, really, in the world that we live in as far as social media goes, because most of the time you see when dudes are trying to get clout, they might say some stuff that they don't believe even uplifted women, just because, that's the fans they want. No, come here, I want you to follow me, I want you to like me. And he was like, I don't care if you like me or not, somebody will.
So would you have rather him taking that approach? Because like you said, that is the approach of, let's say, a Steve Harvey. You see what I'm saying? And that's one of the things that he always stuck to, is like, people get on him and they say things like, well, why don't you talk about the men? But it's like, it's 15 different shows addressing the men and their issues. But why is it that it gets perceived different when it's a man expressing the issues of what women need to improve on?
Because the women are a lot more vocal. A man's going to watch a video. If I made a whole podcast bashing men and all the females weighed in, the men are not going to care. You know what I mean? There's kind of a slight personality just between the genders. They're going to get over it a lot fast. This girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Move on to the next. And women didn't take it that way. And a lot of women are gonna argue back, speak their mind. They want their position to be heard. And so it's like, yeah. And then some of the men that helped egg it on and feed it on kind of just, I feel like, in my opinion, kind of just like that. Oh my God, he got these guys riled up. He got these women really riled up, and they're hopping on the wave with it too, regardless of if they truly believe 100% of the way or they're moving in the way that he's moving.
I think what it came to, as far as why the men caught on, is because it seemed like nowadays we're living in a society with our women where everything is it's like dreamy. You see what I'm saying? Like people nowadays, like because of the internet, right? It's like people is not living in reality. You see what I'm saying? And I think that was the core focus of what Kevin Samuels was trying to do. He was trying to get people riled back in to be like, okay, all this social media is fine, but we gotta live in reality. Like every woman thinks she's a 10 for the most part. And that's fine. But what he tried to get people to understand is it's okay to have self-confidence, but it have to be based in some type of reality. You see what I'm saying? And I think that that been lost for some time now, and he was trying to bring it back.
Yeah. And then I think that also, I agree for sure. And I think that also women have to look at it's a gender difference. There's, when he's saying that and he's like, okay, well, is it based in some type of reality? We often feel the same way, the opposite way going, but he's not talking to them. He's talking to us. And that's where it was like, for a lot of people, he's at me. And it's like, Is he? Is he really? Or is he just speaking for the masses of his audience?
Do you think it was a situation where he was like shining a light back in women's faces? Because men, especially black men, we've been taking the bad end of the stick for a long time. You see what I'm saying? In media, on TV. You see what I'm saying?
But have you really though? I don't know if I can agree that men take the bad end of the stick a lot of the times. Like, I mean, men control most of everything. A lot of females is fans. So I don't think that women have controlled that at all.
No,
I think he had a special niche for sure. Like there was nobody in that lane, and he took it and he made it a lane and he made it popular to give that type of perspective. And I think that it was lucrative for him. I think that it also helped him expand as a personal coach in his business, making it again lucrative for him. And I believe that if you find something right there, ride that wave out.
One thing Kevin Samuels spoke on was the fact that when he first started out, he didn't talk to people the same way. But what he quickly noticed is that our people only react to certain type of conversations, and like you have to speak to us a certain type of way to get us to listen. And I think that he tapped into that. He knew this is how I got to be a little bit controversial just so they can watch. You see what I'm saying? So yes. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think he went about it the right way?
Yeah, again, I don't think that there's a wrong way to do your thing. Like oftentimes, like on my podcast, for example, and sometimes I'll get it because we run it live. So sometimes there's live comments and they're like, Bia, I cannot believe you just said that. I'm very known to be politically incorrect because I'm just stating how I feel about a specific situation or not. And when you say the different approaches, yeah, especially in this world of trends, like this is a new generation with the internet, and we're living in a copycat world right now. And he found a way in the midst of that to create and pave his own lane and ride it out, but still taking these elements that we're looking for now, or that the internet, that the world, that the younger generation is looking for now, and use it. And
so when we talk about Kevin Samuels, right? Because this, regardless of how many people might have felt about him, I think his heart was in the right place, and I think his core focus was bringing the families back together. So, do you? And I think in his mind, he thought that it was that the Black community, especially, was in a crisis situation. Do you believe that right now, as far as the Black family goes, we're in a crisis situation?
Well, I see a lot of Black families. Let's start there. Even though it's not publicly seen that way, media seen that way. Like personally, I do see a lot of Black families. I think that within all families, and especially Black families, when you do talk about the interpersonal relationship between the husband and wife roles and what makes people go this way, go that way, like it gets complicated. I think for the most part, he wanted to see well. I think some of the stuff he did was purposely malicious for, media purposes, like conversation wise. But I just think that that's kind of part of the game. I don't think that he wanted to see the demise of Black people at all and Black families. Like, I definitely think he respected it. But in some aspects, like, because he didn't have a girl, right? He wasn't married.
No, he's two times divorced.
Few times divorced.
Two times
Yeah,
divorced.
2 times divorced. Okay, so it's really hard to
So
say
listen,
that too,
when
you know, like how great are you in this aspect in your two-time divorce? Well, there's always going to be an opposite side to the story, is what I'm trying to get, you know.
but you know, some of the, you know, you can learn a lot from a person who's been there. You see what I'm saying?
I've been
So
married before, and the relationship I would have gave you, advice I would have gave you before being married, during being married, and after being married might all be different based off of the stages. You know, that's definitely something to take into account. If your goal is marriage, talking to somebody about their marriage, even if it is failed, will be beneficial, because as long as they're looking at it with a mirror and clear eye as well.
yeah, I think that's how he learned. You know, you can get some of the best advice from a homeless person. A homeless person can tell you how not to get homeless. You
I
see what I'm
think
saying?
in any instance, learning from other people's mistakes is the best way to do it. Like, you don't have to experience everything.
Right.
You live through somebody else's mistakes and make it. That way you don't have to do it and be like, oh, dang, it does feel exactly like they told me it would feel. You know?
So you say he done some things that was purposely malicious.
Yeah, I think that a lot of his conversational viewpoints, or maybe not necessarily viewpoints, but the delivery and the way that he let it come out was malicious in ways to spark debates and conversations. Absolutely. And I think that sometimes I would see him say something, and then when you listen to him expound on it, you realize, okay, he wasn't saying exactly what that was, that was a little bit out of context. But I think his intellect was up here when it came to that, and he purposely might make a statement that can be construed a certain way, because all it does is open up the door for a response. And that's what I mean by purposely malicious.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that. So you didn't mean like he was saying it with ill intent. You were saying
with ill intent in the aspect of getting the engagement and getting the conversation, so that he got the opportunity to expand on it at a high platform.
So is that really ill intent?
Yes.
Can you really call that ill intent if he just wanted to get the conversation started?
I said malicious.
Oh, my bad, malicious. Can you really call that malicious?
Yes.
If this conversation needed to be had, can you really call that malicious if you got to ruffle little feathers just to get it going?
I think if a tactic can be malicious and still have a bigger story at the end and a bigger outcome or a bigger thing that he was trying to do, because it didn't always work like that for him. Sometimes his maliciousness turned into a whole conversation that might have blew up, you know what I mean? Or he might say something in malicious content that somebody doesn't take the time to listen to him fully explain it later, and then go take this back to their relationship at home and ruin some good things that they did have, because they don't even fully understand what's going on. But because of this one little malicious comment that was thrown out about it, now their own home is actually up in shambles instead of doing better.
I think Kevin Samuels gets a bad rap, you know, because a lot of times when you see them clips, it's him, you know, cussing out a female or cussing out a male. You see what I'm saying? But one thing I know from because I watched a lot of his content. You see what I'm saying? I haven't been watching none of the recent ones, but for like that first year, I think I might have watched every episode he put out. You see what I'm saying? And one thing I know about him is he matches energy. So if a person comes to his show with ill will, then he's going to give them what they're asking for. But if a person come to a show genuinely and want genuine information and really have a conversation, he'll give you that too. You see,
that's what I'm saying. He kind of had to do what it was to fit his audience. You know what I mean? Like, or his interviewee. Like, that's definitely a tactic in counseling and in regular interviewing.
Right.
You know?
So
I don't think that he was, like I said, I think overall he meant better for the Black community. I don't think he was in any way trying to break apart the families. You know, I just think that he had some viewpoints that a lot of people didn't agree with, and they got really mad about it. And people like to talk when they're mad.
See, this is the thing. I never heard Kevin Samuels lie though. You see what I'm saying? Like here straddle the fence, here ruffle some feathers. But we do have a problem in our community. We do have a problem when it comes to the relationship between the black male and the black female. You see what I'm saying? These are things.
But then he'll throw stuff out there like, oh, if you're 35-year-old and you're still not married, you're somebody's trash. And then you're like, huh? Like, that's something that he said. Like, you're no good if you're 35. But that doesn't mean that that's true for everybody. There might be some girls that are 35 and trash, or there could be some girls that are 19 and trash already. So like, but you know, it's just the little things like that I say he throws out maliciously, because if he's in counseling, he knows for a fact that that's not true. I've taken counseling classes. I've taken marriage and counseling classes. Mm-hmm. So 80% of marriages fail because of money.
Okay. So when you what if the word trash? What if you were saying that figuratively instead of literally?
There's no way, figuratively and literally trash. There's no good way to call somebody trash.
What if he's really saying that by 35, if you haven't found a man, you have endured so much trauma, so much heartache, that it's not impossible, but the chances are that you're going to find a mate to go through the rest of your life with is slim.
The man that we're talking about is a very eloquent speaker. Okay. He speaks what he wants to speak, and he says what he says. And he knows the way he's putting something out is how he's putting it out. You're not calling somebody trash in a positive way in no aspect. You know what I'm saying? You might say that you might be extremely damaged. You know what I mean? It might be something that we're not going to deal with. It may go to say you might be lacking some personalities. You might need counseling. You might need some betterments here or there. Mm-hmm. He knows what he's doing. That was a smart man. And not only was he smart, he was very well spoken. Maybe if that was coming from somebody who don't speak so well, and they're like, well, that's not what I meant, then I might take that's not what I meant. But he meant that.
I think the title meant that, but I'm sure, because I didn't watch that episode, but I'm sure that he expounded on what, you know, because a lot of times, especially with this internet era, you need clickbait.
And that's what I'm saying. So that's what I said. When I said he might throw some things out maliciously. He's a very well-spoken person. There's no way that he said that one sentence on accident. There was a reason why he did. That's going to keep his engagement up. That's going to bring people back around in one way or another. The man wasn't stupid.
But that's what I'm saying. Is it really malicious? Sometimes you got to feed sometimes with kids, you got to give them the medicine and the applesauce. And I think when you're dealing with Kevin Samuels, that's what he was doing. The medicine might have been nasty. So I got to use some applesauce with it just to sweeten it up a little bit. You see what I'm saying? And I think that his message was needed, because I don't know how you see it from what you said. I don't think you think our households are in a crisis situation, but I think our community as a whole, we're in a crisis situation. I think Kevin Samuels understood that.
We are the Black people as a whole for more reasons than just relationship, though. And his path was relationships. So we can only put him in this category of relationships. That was his lane.
And I think
his relationship, his lane was interpersonal relationship, not interpersonal relationships, intimate relationships.
And I think that's the lane he chose, because I think what Kevin Samuels noticed that, you know, back in the olden times, or in the 60s and the 50s, when our families were closer, mm-hmm. we were actually thriving. So,
but were we?
Yeah.
Because one thing that we did that on my show, we kind of dig into is the things that families were hiding back then, because being together is not always the best thing when there's a lot of abuse going on in a relationship that these kids are having to watch, when there's sexual molestation and raping going on from the uncles, but we're hiding it because we don't want nobody to know that there's a problem in this Black family over here. That's a lot of the things that we were going through in the 50s and 60s. You know what I mean? Now a lot more gets exposed. A lot more things are, they don't have to take this abuse. They have the way to stand. Now, this would be right down his lane. He would love me to say that. He would be like, well, exactly. So now your women are becoming more independent and now you're not what this man needs. No, we might not be what that man needed because no, I don't have to take that. Sometimes, on the other hand, there's trade-offs. That man who abuses this girl might take care of everything and pay for everything. And she might stay because she's rather deal with the abuse than to stand on her own 2 feet. But is that okay for the sake of the Black relationship? That's debatable.
And I think that, you know, that's what Kevin said. He said in life there's options and trade-offs. You see what I'm saying? And that's another thing that a lot of women had a problem with when he used to speak on high value men and high value men cheat. He's not saying that they're going to cheat for sure, but he's saying that if you want this man,
they are. They're definitely going to, because of the men, because of how men are wired. I think that they are going to, because they then feel like they don't need you, right? There's gonna be, I'm not gonna say all, we're not gonna include all men or anything like that. I won't say that. But for the most part, I think that he's right, because I think that at that point, women become disposable to men because they feel like they can have whatever they want. And because I'm willing to pay for everything, I'm going to get that girl that we were just talking about who's going to let me abuse them physically or emotionally just because, so that I can do this, you know, because I'm taking care of this, because I'm the provider. I think that's a real mindset. And I think that that's very much true.
And that's one of the things that he spoke on. And a lot of women couldn't cope with that.
Because they don't want to believe their man's cheating. Nobody wants to believe their man's cheating.
Yeah, they don't want to believe that they don't want to believe their man's cheating, and they don't understand that a lot comes with dealing with, like, a lot of women want this man. Like, if you was to watch this show from start to finish, you would see that majority of women want the same man. And what Kevin Samuels used to try to get women to understand is that, especially when you're dealing with the Black community, that I think it's like 3% or 1% of Black males make over $100,000 a year. Like, we're not talking about entertainers and athletes. We're just talking about the average everyday worker. So this is only 1% of men.
So he's feeling himself. Oh, I'm making more than 100,000. This girl, she feeling herself. She making more than 100,000, but she's not treating that man like that. It's a gender difference. It's a gender difference and mind difference, still the same. It's not, regardless of how much we want to make it an even playing field, there's always going to be this double standard. If I was making 500,000 a year and my husband wasn't, and I was cheating, it's still going to be seen worse than if it was the opposite way and he was the one cheating. It's the double standard that we have to live in. It's not, a double standard can always be debatable, I guess, but reality is it exists.
But Kevin Samuels was cool with double standards. You see?
But because they exist, you have to be. Right. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying to level out double standards. It's never going to happen. It's a myth. If you believe it can be leveled out, it's a myth.
But the average every day, from what I was saying on his show, a lot of women, they don't, you know, because right now they got this equal rights thing, and men and women are equal, and I can do everything a man can do. And his thing was like, okay, women only want the jobs that's comfortable. Like, it's okay if you want equal pay, but it's like, we need you digging out these ditches too. You see what I'm saying?
There's women who do it, but I agree with, there's always going to be there's always going to be that double standard. There's always going to be that double standard in work. There's always going to be that double standard, especially when it comes to sex and cheating, like infidelity.
Right.
That's the double standard. It's always going to be there. And ultimately, men are in every power position that there is when it comes to the high levels of anything. So are they going to give up all of their rights enough to give us half of? That's not going to happen. Self-greed is not going to let that happen. Like, it's not. And then men in general are already high wired from decades and centuries of being like they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're born, essentially they're born this way. From the beginning of time, they were allowed to have multiple wives. It was a known thing in multiple cultures. It's not like, you know what I mean? And then even when they did have wives, as long as he was taking care of your wife, you were able to go do whatever you wanted outside the home. Like, that's been going on for decades. It's not going to just change.
And another thing that Kevin Samuels spoke highly on is that highly about was the independent Black woman. You see what I'm saying? One of the things that he said was that term, it only applies to our women. And he actually blamed that term partially on what's breaking up our communities and our households, because when you look at the numbers, I think it's 85% of Black marriages fail because the wife is leaving the husband. How do you feel about the term?
But 80% of it's usually about money too, though. Like, I took a marriage and counseling class. It's a complicated thing, but the reason most people get divorced is over money. It's over
the Black family. Just the Black family.
Black families, same thing. Like, I think that the independent woman thing has definitely helped break up some relationships and marriage. Absolutely. I think being able to be independent and understanding that you don't have to take the physical and emotional abuse that a lot of them was taking for a long time, them becoming independent was their way out. And yes, it broke up a family, but it was in a good way. I'm not a person, and I 100% do not believe like, oh, let's stay together for the kids. It's not healthy for a kid to watch an unhealthy relationship growing up. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that all family breakups are a bad thing. But do I think being independent, that just like it for women, when becoming independent is probably the same turning point as that man who just went above $100,000. Now his head's too big and he can feel like these women are disposable. Now I'm independent. This man is now disposable to me because I don't need you to take care of me. So yeah, it probably did break up the home.
But this is the thing, and this is where I agree. Because like you said, that independence, that term comes with a mindset. You see what I'm saying? And that's what people don't really understand. When that term came, it came with a whole mindset.
It's a word with a powerful meaning. It absolutely should. You can't be weak-minded and be independent. It doesn't coincide.
And it's also hard to be cooperative. And when you're dealing with men,
I don't think that's true.
It's hard. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but it's hard to be cooperative and independent because of that mindset. Like you just said, I don't need you. So why would you cooperate? You're less likely to cooperate with a person who you feel like you don't need.
Not if you want them.
Yeah, but wants and needs, there's a difference between wants and needs.
But if we're talking about a relationship, you have to need and want the person. Otherwise, that relationship was going to fail for one reason or another anyway.
But when you're dealing with
it's multifaceted. You can't say that you can't bullhead into one portion of that. If we're talking about actually making the relationship work, you have to want and need them. If either one of those fails, your relationship is going to fail. So I can be independent and not need you, but want you and do everything in my power to make sure that relationship keeps going on. But if I don't want you nor need you, that's when you have a problem. It wasn't gonna last anyway.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I understand what you're saying, but that need, a lot of our women have a big problem with the word need. If a man was to tell a woman that I need you need me, she flip the fuck. It's like calling them a bitch. 9 out of 10 times. You see what I'm saying? So it's hard for you, for me to sit there and let you say that, like, oh no, no, as long as you want them, that's cool. I mean, you gotta want.
But have you ever said that to somebody who actually needed you, or did you only say that to somebody you felt needed you?
I think that we need each other. You see what I'm saying? I think it's certain things that.
Listen, hold on. Listen. I said.
No.
You have to need and want each other. You have to.
Yeah, but I think men are more open to the word need than women are, because when they got this independent mind frame, it builds a wall. It's a wall. It's a wall that you can't cross. You see what I'm saying?
You can't cross it.
Men, and that's where the disconnect comes.
So men can't cross the line of an independent. So then how do women who are actually powerful and independent stay in relationships?
They don't.
Yes, they do.
No, the numbers say no. And that's what Kevin Samuels was dealing with. The numbers say no. You see what I'm saying?
That's not, but he
35, over 50% of women in corporate America are childless and without a man. That's 50%. Half of the women. 50%.
Half of the women. That's
half of the women.
Okay.
And I'm sure if you crunch the numbers down to just the Black community, the numbers are probably even worse. You see what I'm saying? It's like, in order for them to be this powerful person, like you said, in life is choices and trade-offs. You see what I'm saying? So family is one of the things that get traded off when you chasing this corporate life. And that's just the reality.
Careers, period. Do you know how much the entertainers, Black entertainers work? They don't spend a lot of time with their families. Do you realize how many rich people will say out loud them and their wives really live 2 separate lives? They only live their life together when they're home. And that's independence for a male or a female. Like, okay. So for a relationship to work, in your opinion, for a relationship to work, what does there have to be?
It have to be cooperation.
Cooperation and what else? Because we're talking about a relationship, so it can't be one thing.
I mean,
cooperation.
We got to be love, respect, and cooperation.
Love, respect, and cooperation. And you think that, I'm just trying to clarify, you think that being independent takes away all 3 of those?
Yes. Yeah.
So you don't love when you're independent?
No. See, you mixing it up. I think it takes away all 3 of those, because it's hard to get through that wall. Like I said, it's a barrier that these women put up. It's an independent wall, because it's like, I want you, but I don't need you, so I don't have to go the extra mile. You see what I'm saying? I don't have to, and I don't have to make sure you're really happy, because I don't need you. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's going on in our community, and it's tearing our families apart, man. And I think that's something that Kevin Samuels focused on, because he's seen it. You see what I'm saying? And he wanted us to realize, like, look, we need each other. You see what I'm saying? We gotta get out of this this fictitious world that we living in, where everybody is making money and it's not going to be no downfalls, and we need to figure this shit out and make it work and get back to what grounded us, and that was the Black family. So I think that's why his message was getting lost, because maybe to some people didn't go about it the right way, but to me and a lot of people that really watch this content, it's sort of like when you deal with police brutality, and when Black people go out and march, and you got other people saying, well, why are they riding and looting? That's not going to change everything. That's not going to change nothing. But it's like, what do you tell a group of people who tried everything? You see what I'm saying? This is not this wasn't his first approach. It been people before him that tried the Steve Harvey route, and it's not getting us nowhere.
I think I think his route to getting the stage that he got, because your stage doesn't give anything that you're saying itself valid ground. But I think that he got to the stage he got to, and his education gives him some stability on the grounds that he was speaking on. And I think that is what propelled him into where he was overall. I think that's what propelled him to be able to reach so many Black families because of that. And I think that if we go in general, he may have helped some of them. I think that he focused media-wise on a specific portion of the intimate relationship and power balance, because majority of his that he talked about the power balance, which for him obviously was something that was a problem or a concern or a soft spot, because that's where he went often, or that he found was a concern, a problem, or a soft spot because that's where he went happen. But ultimately, in any relationships, there's so many different levels to it that you're not going to be able to summarize it by one power play or one thing changing and that actually fixing the problems. Because like I said, and like regardless of if you would want to admit, the Black families held a lot of stuff that kept the Black families were together but broken. A lot of our Black families were together and broken, very much so. I've heard and seen stories and stories and stories. I've talked to elders, and just in the path that my podcast goes and into talking about actual different scenarios and relationships and things like that. Like I said, I think he had his lane, but there's a much wider view to the world around it.
Well, we're still broken today.
We're still trying to prepare. You're right, but I don't think that we're any more broken. I think that Black families that are together are a lot healthier than the Black families that were together.
Yeah, but that's true. The ones that are together now are healthier.
Yeah, but so that's a step in the right direction. And to build more of those absolutely would be amazing. But I don't think that we can compare the numbers to the healthiness of a relationship, because we might have had more relationships, but they were not as healthy. And that's not necessarily a good thing. The numbers don't tell everything. That's all I'm saying. He knew that. He said it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this. Right now, as a community, as a whole, we're still broken. But at least back then, crime wasn't a major issue. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-mm.
Incarceration, that is
incarceration was high, is high.
It's not as high as it was it's not as low. Incarceration now is way higher.
Incarceration
per capita and numbers are way higher.
Shot up in the 80s. Incarceration shot up in the 80s during the crack epidemic.
Yeah, but we're talking about the 50s and the 60s.
Because
this is when our families was together.
Because it shot up in the 80s.
You know, another thing that happened in the 80s, the destruction of the Black family. Welfare happened in the 80s. Welfare happened in the 80s.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. You're comparing. You can't really compare welfare. Okay, welfare is another aspect. That takes me back to the bigger view and the overall picture past his lane. Welfare is another reason why the Black families are not together. It's not all about the lane that he was in.
No.
That's one other aspect of it. Incarceration shot up in the 80s tremendously. Crack epidemic. When they realized that crack was directed and mostly used in the Black community, yeah, let's charge them more for that. We got a whole bunch of private prisons we need to fill up. So we're going to fill it up with these Black people. We're going to put it on crack because Black people are using the crack. There's multiple reasons for all of it.
Yeah. It's multiple reasons for the breakdown. I don't want to go too much into that. But because that wasn't what his legacy was about. You see what I'm saying? I think he was aware of all of that, but his main focus was, if I can at least just correct this part. You see what I'm saying? If I can correct this part, because right now we got our boys.
Everybody plays their part. Everybody plays their part.
Our boys are reading on a second grade level in some communities. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's bad. So I think that how he looked at it, if I can at least fix the part of gender roles and relationships, that's one problem we don't have to worry about. We still got other things going on. You see what I'm saying? But if I can at least correct this, it's a start to moving on to better things.
He might have believed that.
So when you deal with the backlash, were you surprised about like the reaction that a lot of people was giving after his death?
No, because again, being very unpolitically correct, I don't feel that people should change their energy just because somebody died. You see it not only with him, but with a lot of other people, that all of a sudden they're the best person and they did this and they did that. If a person, now mind you, I didn't feel no kind of way. I'm indifferent to him. He didn't affect my life positively or negatively. But I think for a lot of people, if they already formed opinions about him, why should they pretend that those opinions didn't exist just because he's now deceased? I don't think, to me, I've always thought that was weird in anybody's death. Like when people die and all of a sudden they're the best person ever. That, to me, that's odd.
So the backlash he was getting, do you think it was deserving or misplaced?
I don't think that it was neither deserving nor misplaced. I think that it was part of what he started, going down the lane that he went. He always had the people who were going to not like him. And so those people are going to continue to not like him, even in his death.
I think Kevin Samuels' message was it was something, it was needed, man. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, I think that he gonna be missed. You see what I'm saying? I think that he was a voice. I think he was a voice in our community. I think that he was just getting started. I think that we do have a major problem in our community when it comes down just the general respect that the Black men receive from the Black woman. You see what I'm saying? And I think that somebody gonna have to pick up this ball, man, because he started dribbling it. You see what I'm saying? He only made it to half court, man, and we're gonna need somebody to, they might not gotta go about it the way he went about it, but somebody have to keep these conversations going.
Yeah, I think relationship conversations is something that's going to be continuously evolving. I think there's so many things that's going to change the aspects of how relationships continue to work over the years. Mm-hmm. And it's something that, I agree. The relationship counseling and things like that there's always going to be a need for it. And essentially that's what he was doing, just in the sense of social media.
I think we can wrap it up like that, man. I enjoyed your time, man. Shout yourself out again. Let people know where they can find you. On Spotify, YouTube, what?
Yeah, you can find me on Spotify, Pandora, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Again, it's called Champagne Mornings. I go by the name of Be a King. You can find me anywhere by just that, Be a King, on all my social media programs.
And she talked that shit. You see, she is sharp, man, by what she know, man. Yeah, man.
I told you I'm known to be politically incorrect. I'm gonna say how I feel, but I think we had some good conversation. There was no hard feelings. There was no. That's what a conversation is about, right?
Right. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your night, man. Keep the G podcast, episode 17 in the books. R.I.P. Kevin Samuels, man.
That's. Bye.
I be in my own world, thinking about this money. Why? I love hitting plays, nigga, I'm in love with junkies. Yeah, I might crack a smile, but it ain't nothing funny. I had to stay down, now I got my trap jumping. Yeah, I be in my own world, thinking about this money. Why? I love hitting plays, nigga, I'm in love with junkies. What? I might crack a smile, but it ain't nothing funny. No. I had to stay down, now I got my trap jumping.